Kia ora, welcome to Under the Checkered Flag, MotoGP edition. I'm your host Kate, and we're just going to jump right in.
As always, I am joined this week by Kelly and PozzA. It was Mugello this weekend and the second race in our first back-to-back weekend of the season. Before we jump into the racing, just some housekeeping. Coming into this weekend, we had our third calendar shake-up of the season, with India getting postponed to 2025, which is a funny way to say they've cancelled another race. Kazakhstan shifting into that spot, and so before we jump into the racing at Mugello, I just wanted to grab your guys' thoughts on it.
I was expecting it. I'm gonna be real. I cannot I don't know how to word it, but I was expecting it. I was expecting some problems to happen with that Grand Prix. Just I feel like even just the time of year it's set at is like dangerous just in terms of heat. It's dangerous for riders, it's dangerous for fans. I don't think Kazakhstan is the best replacement, I'm gonna be honest. As much as I want it to happen, I still don't think it's the best replacement. But I don't have too much thoughts in it. It was just something I expected. I think most people expected it. Like even looking at the comments of the post when it was made, people just expected it to happen. So it's not a big devastating loss to me, at least. But yeah, it's a bit crap to do it like in the middle of the season. That's just my thought.
It doesn't surprise me with just the amount of money and funds that they've put into it for it to not go ahead like, say, Finland did a few years ago. I feel like that's sort of the reason they're pushing for Kazakhstan to be on the calendar so hard, but at the expense of India, which they've also had problems with pushing and have spent a lot of money on. It's not the best, but I can understand why they're doing it, just so it's not another race they've spent a lot of money on that doesn't go ahead before getting permanently taken off the calendar.
I have to admit, I'm glad India's not been completely yeeted, but I'm kind of a bit skeptical to see if Kazakhstan even happens. And I don't think I'm going to believe it until bikes are actually on track. And I mean, I don't even think I'm going to believe it, that Wednesday just before, no matter what they say. And yeah, absolutely interested to see what happens. So, another thing before we jump into the Grand Prix racing action, we had the Red Bull Rookies Cup this weekend, and we saw quite a spicy incident, shall we say, on the last lap leading into the finish line. Poz, do you want to talk through it?
It had been a pretty exciting race up until that point. I think it was a lead group of about 17 on the last lap, but coming through the final corner, the leader went wide. It looked kind of intentional to me just to try and get the slipstream down to the line, but it resulted in Maximo Quiles taking the lead, but Moodley as well got a good exit onto the final corner. And it looked kind of intentional to me, but Quiles has come out saying it obviously wasn't. But coming out of the final corner, he pretty much cut straight across the track, straight into the side of Moodley, which checked Moodley up just a bit, and he ended up getting collected by another rider in, again, such a big group. Since then, Quiles, who's the championship leader, by the way, has been given a 2 race ban, so he misses both of the races next time out in Assen. Just my general thoughts was it is good to see a bit of consistency with the stewards on weaving, because last time we saw an incident like this, it was Dennis Onju in America 2021, and he also got a 2 race ban. And if I'm honest, I think personally that did sort of set Dennis straight, seeing as he is one of the more aggressive riders in the paddock. So I do hope that it sort of straightens Quiles out and we don't see another incident like this, hopefully ever again. But knowing how they're all young teenagers, I feel like it will continue to happen, as bad as that sounds.
I wanted to say something. Obviously, Red Bull rookies is actually quite a close competition. Any race you do watch, you will see them all. By the end, they're all quite bunched up. This was obviously a very exciting race, but even in general, they're always quite bunched up. That's why this situation, even though it's bad in general, like weaving, you do not weave ever. But like when it's in a big group and you're part of that big group and leading, it's way, way worse. And he has to understand that. The way he did it, he knocked into is it Woodley? He knocked into Woodley, and that's fine. Not really fine, but the way Woodley he just went straight into another rider and then boom, he could have been run over. That's how close this pack was. It's dangerous. It could have been a serious injury straight out. And thankfully, I haven't seen anyone disagreeing with the steward's decision, which, by the way, steward's making a good decision. Whoa, what happened here? But that's irrelevant to what happened right now. It was just purely dangerous and worrying to see, like, these are up and coming riders, and if this is the way they're riding, then it's bad. It's really, really not good. So hopefully, like Pod said, because this happened to Dennis Onchu in America, I'm hoping that this will knock him straight and he realizes I screwed up. That's what I'm hoping. That's my thoughts on it. Kate, do you have anything?
Yeah, I completely agree. And the fact that all of us agree with the steward's decision here says quite a lot because, yeah, obviously we slander them quite a lot. Yeah, absolutely correct decision by the stewards, and hopefully it does set him straight. He was already in the steward's office the day before, I believe. I'm not too sure what for, but I really hope it's not a continuing pattern of behavior because it's such a dangerous sport. We can't have these bad decisions and silly decisions going on. Obviously, he said it wasn't intentional. Whether he means, the move itself or the result, who knows? I'm glad we're all in agreement on this. Moto 3 then. We saw some excellent racing. We did have a red flag really early in the race. I believe it was about, lap 3 from memory, where Zarathustra crashed and Farioli straight ran over him. It was quite a scary incident. Fortunately, Zarathustra's come away with only a broken shoulder and broken arm. Given the kind of incident that it was definitely quite fortunate. Our podium was Yamanaka, Columbia, and Alonso, which was super exciting. I absolutely love seeing Yamanaka on the podium, and I believe it was his first one from memory. But the incident I want to bring up and talk about is on the restart, we saw an incident between Holgado, Nepa, and Rueda that saw Holgado collect a double long lap penalty. And personally, I think it was a little bit harsh, but I was wondering what you guys thought.
Obviously, Moto3 was a crazy race, and I was trying to cover it on the Twitter. That was a bit traumatizing. But for the double long leg penalty, it was a bit harsh, but I still it was obviously still quite deserved. And I think the biggest problem here is it's quite a knock to his championship goals. He's not my favorite to win it, so I'm happy with that. But yeah, it was a bit of a knock, and I feel like it'll be a bit of a knock on his confidence as well. Anything like that would be. But the race in general was quite good, minus obviously the crash between Zarathustra and Farioli. I'm just glad to say he's okay. Quite scary to watch the replays. It was horrifying to watch the replays even because he genuinely got ran straight over, but he's okay. Thank God he's okay. It was definitely not a clean restart either because Rueda and Nepa collide, although it wasn't really their fault. And then Saki Suzuki went down as well. It was like a crash fest. It was really, really not good in that area. But it finished great, pretty much, apart from Ortola, which which for my predictions, not good, really not good. But Alonso won, Colin Vire came second, and I'll take that. I will take Colin Vire in second, because with that, whatever happened in that race, I will take him not going down. And then Yamanaka finally got a podium. I was so happy. He was just so happy, you know? To see riders like that, they may not be the best, but then they just get that podium and they're so happy. It makes you happy. So, in terms of the podium, great day.
Just going back to the Daniel Holgado incident, I honestly don't think it was that harsh. Normally, if it was the race start on lap 1, they'd be given a bit more leeway, but just because it was a secondary start, I feel like that was sort of lost. But to me, it did just look like Holgado was a bit out of control, too late on the brakes for a start. Obviously cleaned out 2 riders along with him. So I don't think it was deserved, in my opinion. I don't think it was too harsh. But I've seen incidents worse in the past that have gone unpenalized, so.
I guess it does all come back to that steward inconsistency, and because we don't really have a consistent baseline, we don't really know if it's harsh, if it's not harsh. But maybe one day that'll get fixed. We can, hope, but it's not exactly gonna make me hold my breath, because, yeah, I don't see them coming consistent until they fire Freddie, which there is getting more momentum. I believe you can now hashtag fire Freddie on Twitter, and there's quite a few, posts about it. So at least it's not just us slandering the stewards.
I don't think it was ever going to be just us slandering the stewards, in fairness. It's been going on for years at this point.
You good?
Yay! Atlas involvement.
Anyway, sorry for interrupting.
With the red flag in Moto3, it made Moto2 a short race. We saw 12 laps of honestly incredible action. For me personally, it was the highlight of the weekend. Admittedly, not all of it was a highlight, because Furman out of gear, it definitely wasn't a highlight for him. He was shown initially after the practice session in discomfort with his neck. He was holding it after finishing in second place. He was then ruled out of qualifying, so that meant he started quite a bit down the grid. He did go to hospital for checkups and then was able to start, which was a really good thing. He did get a bad start and then was, I guess, further down than he should have been because of all of this. And then, he got out-COVID'd, which was obviously not great, so he crashed out and didn't finish. But the battle at the front was absolutely spectacular. We had, I think, maybe a 6-rider group that definitely felt like it was more Moto3 than Moto2. Our podium came out with Alonso Lopez, Manu Gonzalez, a great result for him. But for the second time in his career, Joe Roberts took the top step at the podium. I know you guys want to digest and have input in the race, but first, I'd love to know if you guys still think that we can consider Furman a realistic option to win the championship, given he's so far behind now.
I have to be realistic. I would love for him to be I would love for him to be a realistic choice to be the championship winner, but right now it's looking unlikely. I refuse to decide yet. I want to give it a few more races, see if he builds his way back up, gets a few wins. If he doesn't, then I'd have to rule him out as a possibility. But right now, I really don't want to. Call me a fangirl. I don't really care. It's just, I really want him to win it. I really do, because I feel like he deserves it. But right now, luck's just not playing in his hand, and it's not working out for him.
Yeah, I kind of agree. If he doesn't start finding form, start winning races, getting on the podium pretty much now, I do feel like he'll just be a bit too far back. I'm pretty sure he's already, 50, 60 points back, which it's been done before coming back from that larger deficit, but I do think it'll be just a bit too difficult with how consistent Roberts and Garcia have been. Outside of that, I did just want to bring up some of the rookies' performance. First of all, Dennis Onju got into Q2 automatically for the first time in his Moto2 career. Qualified P14, got a good start, dropped back quite early on. I believe he said he had contact with someone, but he ended up in P13. Diogo Moreira was top rookie in the race and is now top rookie in the championship with P11. And Mario Aggi got into the points for, I believe, the first time in P15.
I apologize. I couldn't resist clipping, applauding for Dennis Honshu, who's clearly PozzA's favorite rider. But honestly, it was a great result for him to get straight into Q2, and hopefully it's the start of some form for him. And I will just note that Fermin Aldeguer is on 63 points in the championship. Sergio Garcia is on 122 points, and Joe Roberts is on 115, not 150, sorry. We will be doing a bit of a deep dive into Moto2 and Moto3 and the championship that they are next week. So definitely tune in for that. But for now, let's talk about MotoGP. Probably a good sprint race, I'd say, an absolutely boring main race. But something I did not find boring was the Blucati. So Ducati ran a special blue livery, which I absolutely adored. It could be because I'm colorblind, red-green, so can't really see those colors, but I can see blue. But I'm dying to know your thoughts on it.
I thought genuinely probably one of the sexiest liveries I've ever seen. I was in love with it. It was so good looking. And because of Neo, we actually got some really decent shots of it as well. It was so good looking. Honestly, even though it was just a special livery, the best one of the field, in my opinion. I loved it.
But it was also nice being an Italian-based livery, the fact that they got a 1-2 at their home track in Italy just sort of topped it off, especially because it was pretty good looking. Hope we see more special liveries in the coming races, personally.
I agree. It was good. It got, double the track time with both riders getting some good results. On the Saturday, we saw the podium of Pedro Acosta, Marc Marquez, and Pecco Bagnaia. It was a good race. I do want to mention something that I've been trying to figure out if it should have got a penalty, and that was the Miguel Oliveira and Fabio Quartararo crash. Miguel crashed and took out Quartararo with him, who was doing all right. And I can't decide if that should have been a penalty. Another crash that I suppose is a touch controversial was Jorge Martin passing Anaya Bastianini, and they definitely touched. It was probably an aggressive maneuver, but not overly aggressive. And then Anaya crashed, and I guess I'm less, I don't know, sympathetic. That's the wrong word. But anyway, Jorge Martin crashes by himself afterwards as well. So there were quite a few crashes. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I feel like over the last few years we've seen that incident at Turn 1 between Bastianini and Martin so many times, and it seems like every time there is a different sort of view by the stewards. Sometimes it's a penalty, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a harsher penalty than others. So it doesn't really surprise me that he wasn't penalised, but in the end it didn't really matter because, again, 2-3 laps later he threw it down the road himself. But still, again, it's just this consistency problem that the stewards seem to have. Sometimes penalising one incident and then the same incident happens again and they don't penalise it. I don't feel like it's too hard. All we really want is consistency and they just can't seem to provide it.
Yeah, genuinely, there's not much more I can say on top of what Pod said. I just completely agree. Consistency is not something they're known for, and it's just something that we want. I don't think it's too much. I don't think it's too much to ask. I don't think it's too much of like an issue for them to provide, but yet they just still can't do it. The sprint itself, honestly, way more entertaining than the race. I wish I would have covered that one, genuinely. But yeah, no, the stewards, man, the stewards are a big problem, and we need like something needs to be done.
Just something that I wanted to bring up personally was the quote from Fabio Quartararo after that incident with Miguel Oliveira. He had a few strong words about the stewards. A couple of quotes that I'll just pick from this article I have up was he said, I think we have to get people who are more proficient, and he was being critical of them, saying that it's like they've never been racing, which it just seems to me like if even the riders are saying the stewards aren't good enough and saying they've never been racing when the main steward is an ex-world champion, it does still sort of back up that point that is Freddie Spencer really the right person to be leading the stewards, or do they need to get someone else in?
Considering how much we've slandered them, I do want to shout out one good call they made, and that was in the first MotoE race when Lucas Tulovic went down and crashed. The red flag came out super quickly, and that was quite a scary incident. Obviously, he was seen on the ground afterwards not moving. He is totally okay, just a broken shoulder blade, a few contusions, and a lung injury, which, considering obviously when you see a rider that looks like they've been unconscious, those are the best news. So I do just want to shout them out for that red flag and, yeah, the speed that they brought that out. But they still totally suck, and I agree that it's time for them to go. Moving on to the race. Personally, I thought it was a snooze fest. I checked out for a good number of laps mentally. It was quite disappointing considering we'd just had Moto3 and Moto2 being absolutely spectacular, and then MotoGP was a bit mid. Fortunately, we got some great action on the last lap that led to the podium being another Ducati dominated podium with Jorge Martin in P3, Enea Bastianini in P2, and Pecco Bagnaia in first place. So, what did you guys think of the race?
Boring. It's there's not much other ways I can describe it. I really I wanted Pedro to do better than he did. Like obviously he did amazing, not denying that, but I wanted something better and just didn't get it. But like I'm really okay with that. Like he stayed on track, he stayed P5 in the mix of, some very experienced riders, right behind Marc Marquez, and actually quite literally fighting Marc. It was very entertaining to look at. He reminds me of like a mini version of him. I feel like in a couple of years he's literally going to be a mini version of Mark, and I think it's so cool. And then right in front of Frankie Morbidelli, who somehow managed to stay on the bike. Whoa, how did that happen? That's a joke. That's a joke. It's a joke. Pecco Bagnaia came through to win. That was amazing. I was so happy. I don't think I could have been happier. Um, could we call the P3 a Jorge Martin downfall? Probably not. No, I wouldn't say so. But P3 is a decent result, but Enea Bastianini came through. He was that man was starved. Okay, he wanted that podium, and it was so entertaining to look at. And we got great view time of the Blucati because they can't follow Pecco the whole time. He had no fight. So the fight between Jorge and Enea was probably the most entertaining part of the race, and I loved it. Is this Enea fangirling? Probably a little bit, but it was amazing. And then just to mention a few DNFs, Taka Nakagami, Joan Mir, who I am very upset about. I feel like he's just physically and mentally done, even though I don't want to say it, but like I want to see him come back to form. Right now it's just not fair. And then Augusto Fernandez, who has had a run of bad luck, but hopefully he'll come back.
Yeah, it wasn't the most entertaining race to watch, but I still feel like you have to give credit to especially the top four. Bagnaia just ran unmatched pace throughout the whole race. It didn't look like anyone could get close to him after he cleared off from Martin, even though Martin did start gaining on him. But just how consistent the top four were, I don't think any of them really made any mistakes. I'd want to shout out Bastianini for how he managed to stick with Marquez after Mark made his sort of trademark aggressive move up the inside. It didn't look like Bastianini wanted to back down, and just for him personally, I feel like overtaking Martin, who's set to steal his seat, would have felt pretty nice to him.
I do want to shout out Bastianini as well, because I think he's probably one of the people that's been so hurt by this format of the sprint races, because he is a tyre conservation master. He really thrives in the second half of races. So I definitely think that, yeah, adding the sprints in has hurt him, as well as all of his injury woes. One thing I did absolutely adore was Tardozzi's reaction in the garage when Enea got past Martin. That celebration was just pure joy. And I think if Tardozzi had his way, he'd be keeping Enea in that seat alongside Pecco. The final thing on MotoGP is the Japanese Cup, because Yamaha showed up all of a sudden this weekend. Not Yamaha as a whole, particularly Alex Rins. So Quartararo didn't score points this weekend, but Alex Rins put in a spectacular performance in practice, decent performance in qualifying. Admittedly, he's still clearly suffering from his leg injury, but yeah, really stellar performance, and he has taken the Japanese Cup this week. What did you guys think about Rins?
I was so delighted. I was so happy to look at it because obviously I am the type of person to make jokes about any rider regardless, but to see him get points it's still great, you know. Happy for him. He deserves it. He deserves it so much, and even getting 1 or 2 points was amazing. I don't think he'll win it overall. Like I consider it as like a big competition, and it gets like points gatherings, and whoever's most point wins. I don't think he'll win it overall. I still think it would be Fabio Quartararo, but to see Alex Rins putting up even a little bit of a fight, it was so sweet. It was so sweet.
I just think personally it's nice to see Yamaha sort of effectively using the concessions they've been given, because it seems like Honda have very much been like make a bunch of changes, but none of them have really worked. Yamaha haven't made that many changes, but they've all worked. So it is nice to see that as well.
And on that Honda fangirl heartbreaking note, this is where we will end this week's pod. As I said earlier, we will be here next week, and we're going to do sort of like this championship check-in with Moto3 and Moto2 to see what's played out like we expected and what hasn't played out. Furman Aldegear will definitely be getting a mention. As always, like and subscribe, because it does give us motivation to continue doing this. We always, absolutely always love to hear your thoughts. Huge shout out to Andrew, who is a regular listener. We do appreciate all your comments, and have a lovely week. We will be here next week.